A man single-handedly unearthed a giant ancient creature that is 180 million years old. In this video, you will see tunnels dug up by giant sloth, an ancient board game, learn about the Kazakh Tutankhamun, and something else. Watch the video until the end. Hi friend, you're on the KirTop channel. Rare 4,000-year-old board game. During excavations of the settlement, archaeologists discovered a 4,000-year-old Bronze Age board game. The board game was discovered by a team from the Polish Center for Mediterranean Archaeology at Warsaw University and the Ministry of Heritage and Tourism of the Sultanate of Oman. Teams have been studying the area since 2015, and the region, the Jumeirah Valley, proved to be rich in archaeological finds. Evidence of settlement from as early as 4,300 to 4,000 BC has been found, as well as later remains from 1,100 to 600 BC. Recently, archaeologists have made several finds, including evidence of large unexplained towers up to 20 meters in diameter and evidence of copper work. But the most unexpected discovery was a game board made of stone, with markings and holes for cups, although it is not explained how the game could work. It is known that ancient board games entertained people many thousands of years ago. According to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, one board game called Senet was very popular in ancient Egypt and was played by queens such as Nefertari as well as less wealthy members of the population. It consisted of a grid of 30 squares, and the players tried to get their pieces through the last square. Moves were determined by throwing a stick or a bone, and players could block their opponent's forward movement or knock their pieces back. Kazakh Tutankhamen. Sensational finds were made by Soviet Kazakh archaeologists in the late 60s of the last century. Kurgan Isek gave the world thousands of gold items, as well as a new symbol for the Kazakh people, the Golden Man. The burial mound is located on the left bank of the mountain river Isek, near the city of the same name, which was later renamed Asek. In the year 69, excavations began, and in the 70s, the central burial chamber was opened, which turned out to be looted. The young archaeologist Beken Nurkamambatov did not despair and decided to continue excavations, and just 10 meters from the central burial, an untouched burial chamber made of processed tea and Shan's proslogs was discovered. The more experienced scientist Kimil Akeshev undertook the excavations of the new burial. It was then that a sensation evaded archaeologists. From under the thickness of the earth, scientists extracted ancient finds one after another, and all of them were made of gold. As a result, more than 4,000 gold items were counted. In one of the burial chambers, the remains of a young man in golden robes were found, lined with his head to the west, for which he was nicknamed the Golden Man. According to scientists, the deceased was a Seika king. Later, the researchers found that the buried was about 18 years old. He died presumably as a result of a sword or a knife wound in the back. Some scientists claimed that the remains belonged to a girl. This was indicated by a bronze mirror and an earring. However, most scholars consider the Golden Man to be male. It will no longer be possible to establish this with the help of modern analysis. The remains are lost. Badger discovers hoard of Roman coins. The badger led archaeologists to a hoard of over 200 Roman coins that had been hidden for centuries in a cave in Spain. The animal dug into a crack in the rock inside the La Cuesta cave in the Asturias region of northwestern Spain and dug up the coins, which were later discovered by local resident Roberto Garcia. Garcia called in archaeologists, including excavation director Alfonso Fenjol, who believes the badger was looking for food or digging its own nest. When archaeologists arrived at the site, they found a hole leading to a badger's nest and the ground around it full of coins. The badger dug up over 90 coins. The team then conducted an archaeological dig, which unearthed a total of 209 coins dating from 200 to 400 AD. This corresponds to the late Roman period, when such barbarians as the Suebi arrived in the Iberian Peninsula. It is believed that the coins were hidden by refugees who had taken refuge in the area. The coins are currently being cleaned and will be on display at the Archaeological Museum of Asturias. Tunnels where giant sloth lived. I suggest you look at the real evidence of megafauna which was once home to South America. Tunnels cut through the entire south of Brazil. Some of them are more than 50 meters long, and a person can easily walk through them. These amazing places were discovered less than 20 years ago, and they have not even been properly studied yet. You've probably heard of underground cities, but what about the huge tunnels dug by giant sloths thousands of years ago? They are found throughout southern Brazil, and these tunnels are quite unique. Local scientists call them paleotunnels, which literally translates as ancient hole. These holes are really ancient because they appeared at least 12–15,000 years ago, and maybe even earlier. It was then that the megafauna of South America died out. These tunnels were first discovered in the early 2000s, quite by accident. Geologist Heinrich Frank, who is a professor at the University of Rio Grande do Sul, drove past the construction site. At a construction site, a technician dug a strange hole in a hill, and Frank decided to return to it a few days later with the equipment. Before his eyes appeared a small tunnel about 5 meters long, and it was very strange. The geologist carefully examined it from the inside, and on the ceiling he noticed traces of huge claws. Frank understood that no element, no natural phenomena is capable of creating a cave with similar characteristics. So it was logical, albeit rather wild, to assume that some large animal dug this tunnel. Just imagine how a resident of South America can play out a fantasy, because this continent is inhabited by simply countless species of animals. But of course, no modern creature known to science is capable of digging such a hole, so Frank came to the conclusion that this was the work of the paws of some ancient beast. Soon, similar tunnels began to be found in other regions of Brazil, and hundreds of such shelters are now known. Some of them are 60 meters long and about almost 2 meters high. It is assumed that they were created by ancient giant sloth, Megatheria. They were real giants and weighed about 4 tons. At the same time, sloth moved on their hind legs, and standing were about 6 meters, which means twice as high as modern elephant. In addition to sloth, such burrows could also be built by glyptodons, another giant of the past, the ancestors of modern armadillos. Only now they were several times smaller, about 2 tons. Scientists believe that sloth built the largest tunnels, while glyptodons dug smaller burrows. We know that dinosaurs lived many years ago. Their bones and fossilized eggs have come down to us, but we do not know exactly what their dwelling was like. Scientists can only speculate and put forward theories, but with giant sloth and armadillos, everything is different. Their homes have reached the 21st century. Medieval horses were smaller than ponies. A knight in shining armor riding a tall horse is a deeply rooted part of popular culture's portrayal of the Middle Ages. But it looks like the horses of that era were actually pony-sized, much smaller than their modern-day descendants, according to the largest study of horse bones in history. A study published in the International Journal of Osteoarchaeology examined the size and shape of 1,964 English horse bones dated between 30 and 1,650 AD, found at 171 separate archaeological sites. The researchers compared these bones to those of modern horses to understand how the animals have changed over time. On average, horses from the Saxon and Norman periods were under 1.5 meters, ponies by modern-size standards. In the Middle Ages, horses had different combat missions, and they have been bred with these missions in mind. Horses, which may also have been intended for display on tournament use as well as for running, were taller, while smaller horses, known as steeds and trotters, had to travel long distances during mounted military campaigns. Horses have been used in warfare for thousands of years and are still in use today. US Special Operation Forces used horses in Afghanistan as early as 2001. Sea dragon in the UK. Ichthyosaurus of the species Temnodontosaurus trigonodon lived in the ocean for 180 million years. The fossil of a 10-meter ichthyosaur was found in the UK. The marine reptile has become the largest dinosaur skeleton ever found in the country. Paleontologist Dean Lomax wrote about this on his Instagram page. The scientists also published images of the ancient giant skeleton. Sea dragon was found near the reservoir in the English county of Rutland, reports the BBC. The outlines of an ichthyosaur were noticed during the planned draining of the island. It took 3 weeks to unearth the fossil. The size of the skeleton is 10 meters. Ichthyosaurs appeared on Earth about 250 million years ago, died out about 90 million years ago. The lengths of marine reptiles could reach 25 meters. The remains found in Rutland waters were attributed to a separate species of Temnodontosaurus trigonodon. The Fake Factory. Egypt's first archaeological replica factory aims to promote culture around the world. Dozens of designers, sculptors, painters, and workers dressed in white coats were busy making replicas of ancient Egyptian artifacts at Khan's Egypt Replica Treasures, the first factory in Egypt and the Middle East to make replicas of historical Egyptian antiquities. In fact, the company produces not only copies of Egyptian antiquities, but also copies of Coptic, Islamic, and Greco-Roman antiquities. Production depends on the artistic and historical value of the original work, as well as its popularity locally and internationally. Built on an area of 10,000 square meters in the industrial area of Al Bor city in Kalubia province, north of the capital Cairo, the factory consists of several spacious sections for designing, printing, sculpting, painting, and so on. Ahmed Hussein, head of the sculpture department, worked on a copy of the golden mask of the famous ancient Egyptian king Tutankhamen. Replicas are produced here in a ratio of 1:1 as an identical model. Most of the artists at the factory come from the High Council of Antiquities of the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities. Shark victim from ancient Japan. Shark attacks on people do not occur very often if you do not take into account films, and there is even less historical evidence of such incidents. The earliest documented case dates back to about 1000 AD, but it seems that scientists have found the unfortunate much older. An international team of researchers studied the remains of a man buried at a Tsukuma burial ground in Japan and found that he was the victim of a shark attack more than 3000 years ago. The Tsukuma burial ground belongs to the Jomon era. This is the generalized name of the archaeological cultures of the ceramic Neolithic of the Japanese islands, the time of hunter-gatherers, including fishing. The remains at number 24 in question were radiocarbon dated to 1370–1010 BC, that is, to the late Jomon period. The man was buried in a bent position. His fellow tribesman laid his left leg on his body with his foot to his head. In addition, the skeleton was missing the right leg and left hand. On the bones, the researchers found at least 790 perimortal traumatic injuries characteristic of a shark attack. It was not possible to determine the specific type of shark, but most likely it was a tiger or white shark. Ramses the Great and the Gold of the Pharaohs. Ramses the Great and the Gold of the Pharaohs is a brand new multi-sensory museum that will allow guests to experience the life and accomplishments of Ramses III, better known as Ramses the Great. Visitors will come face to face with over 181 priceless artifacts, including Egyptian treasures and one-of-a-kind relics, many of which represent the most prominent pharaoh. On this breathtaking journey, visitors will discover a stunningly preserved collection of artifacts, including sarcophaguses, animal mummies, magnificent jewelry, spectacular royal masks, exquisite amulets, and the tomb's ornate golden treasures showcasing the superb craftsmanship of Egyptian artists. Walking among real colossal statues, visitors explore many of the world's most valuable treasures and learn the most important stories about Ramses and life in Egypt, including Ramses' military victories, including the multimedia recreation of Ramses' triumph at the Battle of Kadesh, arguably the biggest chariots battle ever happened. I believe that this museum should be visited by everyone who is interested in archaeology and especially ancient Egypt. Pot Cave. 67 kilometers from the city of Casas Grandes in the north of the Mexican state of Chihuahua is one of the oldest archaeological sites in Mexico, Cueva de la Ola, Pot Cave. This rock formation is part of a complex located in the valley of the caves of Vela de las Cavas. This is a huge natural complex located on top of the Casas Grandes mountains. Cava de la Ola, a place characteristic of the Pakim culture, consists of 7 adobe rooms built in a rock shelter. In the center of the cave, you can see an interesting artifact. A huge Quetzalcoatl about 3 meters high, hence the name of the monument, Cueva de la Olla, literally Cave of the Pot. Quetzalcoatl is a traditional vessel for storing corn, pumpkin, amaranth, and other cultivated crops, which is made of clay and straw. Similar vaults have been found elsewhere in the region. Both the rooms and the granary show typical ancient architecture of the area. Cueva de la Olla dates back to 950–1060 AD, and the very emergence of the Pachem culture is estimated at about 700 AD. Neanderthals were more human than we think. Dr. Rebecca Rex Sykes is an archaeologist specializing in Neanderthals, relatives of modern humans who died out about 40,000 years ago. She chose to highlight an article published last April in Scientific Reports about the discovery of 100,000-year-old Neanderthal footprints off the coast of the Spanish Iberian Peninsula. While these are not the first Neanderthal footprints discovered, they are very special. This is a group of all ages, including children, some of which are very young. It seems that they foraged for food at the edge of the lagoon. Diversity in age plays a key role here, and actually helps to challenge the common assumption that Neanderthals foraged alone, with adults separating from the group to find food for children. The discovery instead supports the theory that hunting and gathering may have been a family affair involving the combined efforts of different generations. Some of the footprints, which belonged to the children, were grouped in a chaotic manner, as if they were plain. The discovery helps lend a sense of humanity to this not-so-distant relative of man. Rate the video with a thumbs up and write a kind comment under the video. This way you will help in the development of the channel. Thanks for your views, bye everyone!